Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over Rocketman, King of the Rocketmen, #1 by Innovation Comics. It's a 1991 comic, but before we get into that, I'd like to show you my own work. This is the Death Knights. It's a #1. It's a reprint of Random Access #6 and #9, and it's part of the bigger universe as well. You can get this at my website at alexanderturbin.com. I'll put that in the link, and you can either get it by itself for $2.99 plus shipping from my website, or you can get this and also one of these handy dandy little pointer lances. It is the Lance of the Death Knight, and you can get these together for $5. This will be all painted and sanded and all that cool stuff, or you can get for $35 the Death Knights, the Lance, and this nice little resin sculpture that I've done. I replicate them in resin, and I paint them and stuff. So you can get this unpainted though. The $35 one is unpainted, whereas the next tier is $50, where you get $50. You pay $50 and you get the resin sculpture and the Death Knights comic book, and also the Lance for $50, and that is all painted and stuff. So you can check that out at alexanderturbin.com. So now that we're done, I'd like to say paying the bills, but this hasn't paid any bills whatsoever. But anyway, I'm not going to cry about that. I'm going to just move along. So Rocketman and the King of the Rocketmen. This is an adaptation of a 1949 serial called Rocketman, King of the Rocketmen, and it has fallen into public domain. So anybody can do anything with the movies. I guess it was a movie that was cut down into 12 or 13-minute episodes, and I watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes while I was reading this comic. I actually had never watched any of the episodes before, and I got this back in the day, back when it first came out in 91 or 92, whenever I picked it up. I might not have picked it up exactly when it came out. But I was drawn to it. Obviously, I love the art. The art is beautiful. And I'm not a huge fan of Rocketeer. I love Dave Sims' art and the Rocketeer comic, but the movie was kind of like everybody. It kind of let everybody down a little bit. I actually don't have any Rocketeer comics, and the only Dave Sims I have is, I don't think I actually have any Dave Sims covers or any stories like that. I'll have to rectify that as soon as I can, because he's a fantastic artist. But Rocketeer was a reimagining. I think it's a reimagining of Rocketman and King of the Rocketmen. I don't. So he used that. If he used that and King of the Rocketmen is in public domain, then shouldn't Rocketman, the Rocketeer, also be in public domain? Although they're two completely different characters and stuff. So I guess it wouldn't be. Just kind of like if I made something for Crom, which is in public domain, and created a character, I don't think anybody could use that character, even though Crom is in public domain, which we will see, because I am in the midst of doing some Crom stuff. So this is an adaptation of the serialized movie that came out in 12 or 13 episodes or whatever, and it's actually really fantastic. I love it. I love the artwork. It's beautifully painted. I can't tell. Sometimes it looks like he's using watercolor. Sometimes it looks like he's using acrylic. Sometimes he looks like he's using oils. I cannot really tell exactly what this guy's doing. He is Chris Moeller, and I haven't looked up other stuff that he's done. I'm definitely going to do that. I've meant to be doing that, to do that before the show, but I'm going to do that later and try to fill in some of the blanks. So it's an adaptation. Like I said, let's get into this, and then we'll talk about the writing and the art. I'm going to talk about the writing and the art as I'm going through this, because it's one vision, and it's an adaptation, and the art is really just too good to to not just talk about as soon as I see something that I really love, and I love most of it. The only complaint that I really have about any of this is that it's super dark. It's almost monochromatic with the browns and the greens and the grays and stuff, but it has like little casts of color, and also there does look like there's some airbrush stuff going on as well. But the darkness also lends to the bright lighting effects that they use as often in the book, and we'll get to that as we progress. But the beginning starts out, and I'm going to compare it a little bit to the serial because the serial is fresh in my mind, and a lot of this is it's not different, but it fleshes a lot of stuff out, which is really great. I actually like the comic book, a lot better than I like the serial. The serial I thought was very kind of droll, and like the actors didn't really seem like they were either into it, or the director didn't really direct them to do a specific thing that he wanted them to do. And I did not really like the acting whatsoever. It was very kind of drab and droll for me. But here, like in the serial, unless I watched something completely different, I watched the serial that was on YouTube, and I think it has everything in it, although it's cut up into different places. So I think I might have missed a few things, or I might have missed the ending of of an episode or something. And because I did that, maybe some of the stuff was not explained, and he explains it in here. I don't know. Anybody that knows Rocketman, King of the Rocketman, let me know the exact correlation between the comic and the show, and how it's broken down, and really what's up with the differences between the book and the show, because I would really like to know. In the book, you've got a plane going on, and you've got some dialogue between two of the scientists that are in the plane, and one is worried about sabotage of the plane and it being attacked by some sort of exterior force, and then the doctor is like, "That's nonsense," and then the plane explodes. In the serial, the plane just crashes. Like there's none of this stuff going on. There's no exposition. There's no talking. There's no dialogue or anything like that. It's just a plane, and then they kind of explain a little bit about who was in the plane. It was a scientist that works for Science Associates, which is basically not Shield, Star, either Star Labs or what's the one for Marvel? I can't remember the big science. AIM, no, AIM isn't it? There's a scientific lab in Marvel that I just can't remember. So then they kind of cut to the next scene, which is a reporter talking to the head of Science Associates, and she is a writer for Science Data magazine, and she wants to know exactly what's up, because in the show, actually, it went through several more scenes where the scientists were killed, and it's like some unseen force. One of them, he locks in a car, and he takes over the mechanics of the car and makes it crash, which is pretty cool. But also he has another scientist that he kills in a different way. So he kills all of these scientists that are working at Science Associates in different ways. And I kind of wish some of that was in the book, especially the car scene. The car scene is pretty cool because it has this external voice, like it's coming from the radio or something, which is like this evil doctor genius. I'm not entirely sure who yet. But then he gets in the car and it locks all by itself, and he can't break through, and the car just starts on its own, and it starts going down the road, and he's trying to move the wheel and stuff, and he's trying to get it to swerve or whatever, and he can't, and then the car just crashes and he dies. So I kind of wish that had been in the comic book. I know there's space limitations, there's story limitations between comic books and movies and serials. But I think that would have been worth having in the just like 3 or 4 pages in the beginning, because there's a lot of No, there really isn't. I was going to say there's a lot of stuff that they could have taken out, but the challenge with any kind of adaptation, as everybody knows, is putting all of the information in that you can. Like Ralph Bakshi tried to put all of the Lord of the Rings information and plot points and characters and all that stuff into one movie. That is insane. Like, why would you do that? Why would you take that much, 3 books, and try to cram them into one movie? I know it was probably a budgetary thing. I think it was supposed to be 3 movies, but then budget wise they couldn't do it, and I think that's why it ends in such a kind of a not great state. But then you have the flip side of that, where they have The Hobbit, which is 3 long movies, and really they did not need to make The Hobbit into 3 long movies. It could have been easily have been 2 medium-sized movies, and it would have been probably a lot better. The scenes in The Hobbit are fantastic, but they're I love The Hobbit, and I will battle anybody that says they don't like The Hobbit, because The Hobbit is great movies. I know it has a lot of long extended scenes that kind of drag on a little bit, but then they have like fantastic scenes that are just amazing. But anyway, that is one of the challenges to an adaptation, and this by no means deviates from having those challenges. So the plane crashes, and she's trying to have this interview with the head of Science Associates, and they're not really giving her any kind of information about anything about who might have killed the scientists, about what they're working on. They work on like nuclear propulsion. They work on missiles. They're like a super secret, heavy duty sciencey laboratory thing, and it's a little surprising that they're not just on a military base where they can keep all of their secrets hidden, and all of the security a little bit more tight. But I guess that's why we have this in a serialized story, and it's made in the way it is. In the show, the professors or the scientists all are introduced. This is much better. It's a lot slower. In the serial, each one in turn goes from one door to the next door, and they're being introduced to the reporter. I can't remember, Gail, I think her name is. And they're introduced like somebody's like, he's Professor Bryant, head of engineering, and as he says it, they just kind of fly by. Whereas this, it actually shows their faces, because it barely even shows their faces in the serial. In this, each one is. I love the art here. It's very Sienkiewicz-ish. He reminds me of so many different styles and different ways of doing things. Sienkiewicz, Dave Bolin, Mark Teixeira, his painted work. It reminds me a lot of different stuff. But he's a little bit more, I'm not going to say reserved, but he's a little bit tighter. And I really like it. I really love it a lot. Brian Bolin, Dave Bolin. I get the Bolins confused, because there's a Bolin in the Blackhawks that was a big part of their cup run, and there's one of my favorite artists, Brian Bolin, Dave Bolin. I can't remember. Anyway, so they're introduced, they're rushed through, and then she has this whole thing that was not in the book, where in the show, where she's talking or thinking about how scientists are supposed to be all wrinkly old men, and this king, I think, who is like a spokesperson for the Science Associates, Dr. King. It doesn't say his first name, just his last name. They're all like Dr. whatever, so it almost never says their last names. And then it cuts to some sort of, I think this is Science Associates. Yeah, this is Science Associates. And whenever they have a meeting, it like slows things down in the serial, and they just kind of discuss a lot of stuff. And that's what he broke that down into like like almost like a courtroom drama, where they're all talking about their different things. And it's like a I don't know, like a script in a movie or something. So it just goes by really quick because it's really not information that is hugely pertinent. It's just a lot of kind of blathering about stuff that is information that you might want to know, but it's not like a huge part of the story, which the story is very, it's not a complex story, but the difficulty is in that everybody really kind of looks a lot alike because it's in this old timey 1949 look where they all have the hats and they all have a mustache and they all have smoke and they all do the same thing. I mean, that's why this is so great, because they all look completely different and each have their own particular styles. So then it still gets a little bit darker in the art wise, but there's so many great shadows and lighting effects that I like the darkness because it has a really great comparing and contrasting thing. Like this guy here, they're waiting for Dr. King in his office, and they're rummaging around in an office looking for something, and this sparkle in his eye just really makes it it balances it out, and the light in his cheekbones and stuff. And also Dr. King, this is Dr. King's office, so he comes in and there's the shadow on the window, which is like a complete noir kind of 40s trope thing going on. It's really, really fascinating art wise, and I really love it. One of the great things I love about the artwork, along with the, even though it's dark, you've got these great lighting moments, like the back end of this car. But the brush strokes are so, they're there, they're there. They make great texture, but they're not so overpowering. Some of these comics, the brushstrokes can become so overpowering because they don't want to use the little details, because each little detail takes, that's another month in the comic, in the page of the comic book. So you really have to balance, especially when you're painting a comic. I've tried to paint a few comics and it is completely nerve-wracking because it just takes so long to finish a panel or a page that it feels almost like it's not worth it. Because for me, I know a lot of people are different, because a lot of people are like, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to, finish this comic in 3 years, or, I'm just going to take my time and everything's going to be as meticulous as I can get it and as perfect as I can get it. But then, I have quite a few friends on Instagram and stuff that I'm working on comics pages and stuff, and they just are so into the intricacy, and they're so into having everything perfect that they never release anything, and or it's so far in between that by the time they do release something that it's not, I don't know, it just takes so long that they don't get everything out of it that they want. And so you really have to have a really good balance of producing an amount of quality and quantity in your books that you can keep things rolling, because you kind of want to keep the ball rolling art-wise as well as story-wise, as well as idea-wise and everything, that you just have to keep it going. One of my things, like I do random access because of this, is because I get so what's the word? I get so not bored. I don't get bored with my comics. I get bored with just doing something over and over again, or intricate detail. Comics is such a huge time suck. Like a page like this could be 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours. And when you start it, that is the most difficult part. But you also have to sit down, and you just have to be like, I'm going to start. And then once the ball gets rolling, then you can, settle in, listen to music, play a TV show or whatever in the background, and just kind of focus in on your stuff. But really maintaining that focus is often the hardest thing to do in comics. As you all know, as most of you are artists or writers or whatever like that. So anyway, as I was saying, this is a huge 49 trope book. There's a fight scene. They're in his office. They're rummaging around looking for some sort of information. Dr. King comes in, and they're like, "We're going to mess you up." And but even though he's a scientist, he uses his briefcase and they get into a fight and he kind of whoops their butts a little bit, and they go running away. In the serial, he does, this is the same scene and it's really great, but excuse me, but it's done so quick that it's almost not even needed or inconsequential or whatever. This is very interesting, the fight scene, and I really like it. I think it's great choreographed and everything. That's another thing. The choreography of so much of the stuff in the serial is just not really that great compared to the comic book. I love the choreography of the fight scenes and of the flight scenes and of the car chases and all that stuff that are in the book, that it makes the serial look kind of silly. It really kind of makes the serial look silly, which is too bad. So they take off and then they're going, this part is not in the serial, the one that I saw anyway. Dr. King is visiting Professor Millard, who actually creates the Rocketman suit and the Rocketman rocket and everything. And it's important because it's nuclear powered rocket. So it's not like it's it's like not like a little small little thing. This is a big deal. And even then, I was thinking, like there are rocket propulsion. You see the guys with the rockets on their back and they kind of lift up into the sky and then lower down and they can move around. This guy zips around, same as Rocketeer. He zips around like he's an airplane or like he's a rocket. And when they get that kind of technology, then we'll be talking some Iron Man stuff. Really, until then, it's still science fiction, and I think it's going to be like that for quite a while. But Dr. Millard, he's hidden away, he's hiding because he knows that everybody's out to get all of the scientists that are working in Science Associates or whatever it's called. And he's talking about the Rocketman costume that he's made, and he actually gives it to Dr. King for safekeeping. I can't remember if it's safekeeping. But then he also gives him a gun and to help him. It only has one shot, but it goes like 2 miles away. So it's really a fantastic gun. And so Dr. King kind of leaves the hideaway that Dr. Mallard is at. I don't know what's this supposed to be. I think this is just supposed to be leaves, but it could be construed as, I looked at it and I thought it was a flying person. So I'm not entirely sure why that is. But this is a nice panel. I kind of wish the car was a little bit bigger just to see some of the detail. But again, a lot of the detail is left out because it is a painted comic, and I can understand all of that. The bad guys, which I don't really know who the bad guys are. It doesn't even really say. It's one of the doctors is the mad scientist guy, and he wants all of the technology that he can get or whatever. And it's really not important. The story is, like I said, it's very basic 40s kind of crime drama-ish with a little bit of sci-fi mingled in. So they're driving and they take off. They're taking off in the truck. In the serial, it doesn't have these pages at all. It doesn't even really have, I don't think it has him talking to Dr. Mallard either, Millard. They take off and then it just ends. And then in the next serial part, it has a missile. It has like this text that says a missile is headed towards the city, and Dr. King has to use the Rocketman armor to try to save the city. In this, he's actually chasing there's a truck, and it has some sort of rocket in it, and Dr. King sees them. He puts on his armor or his helmet and his rocket. He takes off and he starts flying, and I don't know if he sees the truck or they're just leaving. He's out in the woods or something, and he's going to find them. Then it cuts to the journalist, cuts to the journalist and somebody else. I think it's the spokesman for Science Academy or whatever. Glenda. That's where you learn her name is Glenda. And they're just kind of going for a drive, and they see the Rocketman, and she clicks some pictures. But actually, before that, does she click the pictures? I don't think she clicks the pictures then. Or yet, yeah, she does. She clicks some pictures. Yeah, there she goes. She clicks pictures, and she gets a picture of the Rocketman. So that becomes important later on. But the Rocketman, who is Dr. King, sees these guys in the truck. But then the truck, I don't know, he's not using anything. They just fire the missile. It's not very well known. It doesn't say anywhere that they're firing the missile. No, the Rocketman goes into the truck. The Rocketman shoots into the truck or flies into the truck, and he starts punching all of the bad guys. And then I don't know where then the truck explodes. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. The thing is armed, so accidentally the missile accidentally lifts off or is ignited or whatever out of the truck and shoots out of the truck, and that's when Dr. King, Rocketman, flies off into the and shoots it with his gun. I kind of wish this had been done a little bit clearer or a little bit easier to understand and read, because I really didn't understand that's what happened. In the serial, none of this is here. It's like I said, it's just he's flying along, and then he pulls out his gun and he shoots the rocket and it blows up. So then it goes into here, and that's Dr. Millard and King, and they're just kind of talking about who's looking to try to get them and what's going on, and trying to figure out everything. Also, it's Dr. Vulcan. Dr. Vulcan is apparently the bad guy. So anyway, she took the pictures. Glenda took the pictures, and they're also discussing about whether it's important or not that she took the pictures. And they're like, at first they're like, you won't be able to see anything, so it doesn't matter. Here's another corporate board meeting. They're just kind of blathering away, and it's really not a lot of information. It's just scientists kind of talking about things. And again, you have the bad guys, and they are looking for the pictures of. I don't know how they knew that Glenda took pictures, but the bad guys are looking for Glenda and the pictures and the camera that she took, and the good guys are looking for Glenda and the pictures she took. And finally, Dr. King stops them from. Is that what happens? They are in her house. They take the film. And Dr. King lets them. It's no big deal. Or they just leave, and then I'm a little bit confused as to what happens. Actually, she's with somebody else. She's with the director, and then they're there. The bad guys are already there, and because you see that in the previous pages where they're kind of rummaging through her house, and they're there, and they grab the camera from her, and then it goes to Dr. King and Dr. Millard, and they're talking about it takes a certain kind of emulsion to develop the film, and it's not. It has to be made by a special scientist, and yeah. So they decide their plan is to stop the emulsion from being made by any of the scientists that it can be made by, and that's their big plan, basically. And then you see the bad guys again, which, the bad guys, they never kill anybody. They just will like punch them, punch Dr. King or punch whoever, but they don't kill anybody. And he shoots somebody, gets shot, one of the bad guys, and he's so astounded that he gets shot. But you've got the bad guys, and they're holding out. They're looking for a way to get some of that emulsion so they can develop the film so they can see who the Rocket Man is, even though the Rocket Man is in a mask. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. A lot of this comic doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just relying on you to kind of take things for face value. It's like a kind of like a children's story where something is, and you're just not supposed to question it at all. So then the bad guys are here. And then Dr. King or Dr. Millard or somebody clicks on the switch. They're in the dark or something. No, he clicks the switch. Then they're in the dark. Then there's a fight scene. I think this is Dr. King, actually. Yeah, this is Dr. King. He's actually. It's so hard to tell who's who unless they actually say their name. But he turns the lights off. They have a big fight scene. That's where one of them gets shot. Or no. Yeah. And it's King. And then they go on a car chase, I guess. And then he puts his helmet on, his Rocket Man helmet, and he goes flying towards the bad guys and breaks in on the bad guys. I don't know who they're fighting. This is very confusing. I had read a review of this, and they said that it was very confusing, each comic towards the end, and I am definitely understanding that now. It's only confusing because you don't know who people are, and because they all have a hat on, they all have a suit and tie, and they all have a mustache. So it's very hard to understand who's who. So anyway, it's very difficult to understand. He gets shot, the bad guy gets shot, and then just kind of runs away. And that's how it is, how it ends. There's an explosion. I don't know what the explosion is. Is it a missile going off? Is it a bomb going off? Is that Dr. Millard? So I am completely baffled by the end of it. The last few pages in particular, the last 5 or 6 or 7 pages are particularly confounding, and I definitely don't like it. Like the first part went pretty much along with the serial, and I understood what was going on. But this towards the end, it's really hard to understand who's who and what they're doing. Unfortunately, that's true because it makes me not want to get the other issues, and that's probably what happened in the back in the 1991 when I first got this. I probably got the first one and it was like, I don't understand any of this, what's going on. And that's why I didn't get the second or third or fourth. I think there's 4 of them. I didn't get them, and I'm not going to get them again. I went into this thinking that I was going to really enjoy it, and then I was watching the serial and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is really cool. But then towards the end, all of this mangled, jangled storyline, it really turns me off. It turns me off. Confusing comics, probably the number one turnoff in getting either new readers or getting readers to come back, because that's one of the things you have to, if you're doing a serialized comic, you want readers to come back. You want them to put their hard-earned cash on the line for your stuff. And if you're confusing them, then they're simply not going to do it. I love so much of the artwork in this, and I love the brushstrokes, and I love the there definitely is some airbrush stuff going on. This Rocket Man scene, this full page spread is really amazing, and all of these painted panels are really fantastic. I do wish there were borders around most of them, or all of them, or as many as they could. Like there's no border here. I understand that's perfectly fine, but I wish there were borders around here. When it's not breaking the edges of the borders, I kind of wish there were. And then the dark pages, they're okay because of the different light techniques that they're using. But I really love the art. The art is fantastic. It's beautiful. And that's why I'm giving it a base 7, because as everybody knows, if I'm not going to buy more comics of this, then the highest it can get is a 7. And usually it goes down from there, because if I'm not giving it a base score, then it goes down. So, but I'm going to, because of the art, 100% because of the art. The story, no, it's throwaway. I'm not interested in it. And I started to be interested in it, but then it just lost me, and it makes it uninteresting to read, unfun to read, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. So anyway, let's wrap it up. Rocketman, Rocketman, King of the Rocketmen, #1 by Innovation, 1991. I'm giving it a 7, and that's a very gracious 7, because I could have gone way lower because of the story. The scripting is perfectly fine. It's the story and the way it's set up. If he had just put like some kind of reminders of who the characters were, this guy looks like this guy, looks like this guy, looks like they all look the same, and that is basically the same thing in the serial. If they had had more guys like this who had a little bit of definition, where you could tell who it was and what they were doing and what their names are and all that stuff, then I would understand. But they didn't. I'm giving this a 7, and that's that. Let me know if you guys have read this. I really want to know if you liked it, if you liked the art, if you didn't like the art. Let me know. If you're new to the channel, I review and do deep dives into usually 80s and 90s indie comics, but usually black and white, but sometimes weird and different stuff that I'm into. But if you like that kind of stuff, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and all that cool stuff. And thanks for watching. This has been a rough one. This has been a rough video. I'm a little bit confused by the end of the story. And thanks for watching. Have a good weekend, and keep on creating.